Hi there, and welcome to the third session of our Supper Club series this year. This is for the month of January, and we've been doing a series on our interreligious neighbors and having conversations around interfaith matters. And this month we have our friend and very soon to be in the building neighbor, if not already, Rabbi Adam Morris. And you probably saw Adam last year on our Supper Club video on spirituality and friendship. So this day we get to talk with Adam about Judaism and learn a little bit about Judaism. Welcome, Adam. We're so glad you're here.
It's so great to be here, and hello to everybody again.
Yes. So just a word before we begin about why we're doing this series, these interreligious conversations. One reason is because the world is in a delicate place with our misunderstandings of one another, and religion is one of those topics that people try to avoid if they're being delicate, or they dive in if they're being brash. But we have misunderstandings of each other, I think, and maybe misconceptions about each other's religions. And so this is an opportunity to just get some real simple clarification and understanding new ways to see a new religion. So we're glad to have you.
Yeah, it certainly seems more important than ever that we're talking about these things, and that we remember that we're all, before we are Jewish and before we're Christian, we're human, and we're in this world that's larger than any of our faith traditions, and so we can learn from each other. So we're excited to do this series, really excited to have you here, Adam. Thought we'd start with, if we caught you on an elevator and said, tell me about Judaism before we hit the first floor, how do you sum it up, right? What's Judaism about?
The Jewish elevator pitch, so to speak.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, fortunately, actually, before there were elevators, people were asking this question, and someone much wiser than me, there's a story in our tradition about exactly, it wasn't an elevator moment literally, but it was kind of that. And the quick version of the story is that one of our earliest sages, Hillel, about a couple thousand years ago, was confronted by someone whose goal maybe wasn't so educational, didn't want to engage in dialogue, was more of a rabble-rouser, and confronted Hillel and said, Rabbi Hillel, teach me everything there is to know about Judaism, why I stand on one foot. And much to his chagrin, but not ours, Hillel responded. I imagine him just kind of gently taking a breath and saying, what is hateful to you, don't do to anyone else. The rest is commentary. Go study and learn. What is hateful to you, don't do to anybody else. I can't get better than that. I think that's ultimately what we're about, is living a life, creating relationships, households, communities where what we would hate doesn't happen to anybody else. I think that's...
It's so interesting how similar that is to Jesus, a good Jew, saying some of the law is it's all summed up in love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? The kind of the inverse of that very thing. But it's a very Jewish way of approaching things. And there's this, well, first of all, just the whole storytelling, which would, is so great, that rabbinic tradition that's and that midrash, and that we're gonna. But anyway, and then being able to sum it up in one in a pithy little,
I know.
thing like that.
That's why I don't have to make up a great answer.
Yeah.
I've got them to do it, and also hopefully in an entertaining way.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
And Hillel was rooted, as you kind of mentioned, in our sacred text, in our written text, what we call Tanakh, and as Old Testament. But those teachings, one of the most oft-repeated verses in Torah is, remember the stranger, because you were strangers. We get love your neighbor as yourself. We get remember the widow, the orphan, the stranger. It is the roots and foundation of what you find in our original stories. And I think that's why Hillel kind of extrapolates, say, hey, it's all about this.
Yeah. It's a very ethics-centered approach to faith, it seems like, or grounded in an ethic.
It is, but I would hate for me to present for you to think, or especially for Jews to think, that, oh, it's just about, I just got to go be a big, good person. Now, we want that. We want us all doing works that makes the world a better place. But a religion is the storehouse of wisdom, of practice that helps us move to knowing, understanding what justice is, what peace and compassion is, knowing our place in the world so we can act that way, to move from that, that narrow way of seeing ourselves that's all about only our survival and what makes us feel good, to a larger sense of just the bigger picture. Call that God, call that our unity. I think that's all of our traditions, practices, they lead us towards what Hillel was saying. I think what he was saying doesn't mean those weren't important, but those were the means to that end.
Can you talk about what is the larger story in which Jews find themselves? What's the larger story, and then what is your particular movement's story?
What's the larger story? I guess I'll go to story. I think if you look at our sacred text and the Torah, which is Genesis and Deuteronomy, is kind of the heart of that text. The bulk of that text is about moving from slavery to freedom. It's about that path from liberation towards promised land. And I think that's a larger story. I think for us to experience, but also to cultivate interpersonally or globally, that movement for all people. I think that is what we're about. And it's not just in that, no matter what your theology is, part of that story is that we're not doing that in a vacuum. There are larger forces at play. It's very clear deity in those stories, but there is a divinity. There is we're reticent to kind of name God too narrowly. We have lots of names for God.
But and you mean the text does?
The text does, and even beyond the text and what we add in tradition. But there certainly is in our tradition, this belief, this understanding that there's a larger cosmos and layers of reality at play. And we're not just, yes, we're moving from Egypt to the promised land, but we're doing that in partnership with others and with something bigger than ourselves.
Would most, and we should say, we're asking you to speak on behalf of all Jews everywhere, and this is, and you can't do that. This is out of your understanding, your faith, your path. But that sense of moving from slavery to freedom, would most Jews think about that mostly in a very kind of practical way? Of human beings being able to live in freedom? Is it more metaphorical in the movement of the human heart to live in freedom wherever you are, or is it both, or might be different for you than for someone else?
Well, one of the caveats I always say when I'm in a position to speak for all Jews is to remember something we say about ourselves. If you have two Jews, you have at least three opinions. So I can't speak for all of us. I'll do my best to kind of generalize, but you also got to know that I'm speaking for me, and whoever's listening should listen with a critical mind and critical ear, lovingly critical, but to always question and push back. And so, I can't speak for everyone. I think everyone has those different pieces. I think also, honestly, if you're speaking, some Jews, and this may be going beyond me, there's an element of that's also a sense of preservation of the tribe, the peoplehood of Judaism, of Jews.
Jewish people.
And whether you name that as tribe or people or nation, that's, and that sense of survival of the Jews and Jewish identity, that's a really important part for many people. I respect that and value that. That's not my central piece. So
but Judaism is much more complex than a lot of our other world religions in that way, that it's not just a set of beliefs that you adhere to. There's also culture. There's all kinds of layers to what makes a Jew a Jew.
There's many ways to be a Jew.
Yeah.
And you can never step foot in a synagogue, never observe a holiday, but if you're born into the family, you can be considered Jewish.
Or you could convert and have no kind of family heritage. But
yes, you could do that too. And so the two Jews, three opinions kind of plays out, because there's so many ways to do that. And if you imagine like a Venn diagram with the different pieces, there is some overlap, but it's really different for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, one of the helpful terms that I've come across is a 20th century Jewish thinker, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, thought of Judaism, termed Judaism as a civilization rather than religion. And so under that umbrella of Judaism as civilization, you have religion, ethnicity, culture, peoplehood. And so it's a little different way of framing it, but is kind of helpful. So yeah, and so when I'm in these situations, which I love, it's often important to say, okay, there's little apples and oranges. There's an orange in our fruit basket, but there's other fruits in there. I'm going crazy with
I got it. We got it. We're tracking.
So what do people need to know about Judaism? What are some basics that if you are doing Jewish things, what are you doing?
For Jewish thing, I think some of the basics is that I guess I'd start with time. I think marking time Jewishly may be the most fundamental pieces that we do. That starts with Shabbat, the Sabbath. That starts with the ebb and flow of season, whether it's marking Jewish New Year, which is a different time than the New Year that we're hovering around right now. That's marking kind of climate, and you know that there's fall festivals and spring festivals, and looking at the ebb and flow of time that we all human beings, we're given this gift and it's limited, and there's a Jewish way to mark it and to try to be present and show up through that too.
There's practices, rituals that help to do that.
Help frame that.
Yeah.
And that ground us not just in the timepiece, but the stories and the values, which I think is a really other important part, is our stories. I think our Torah story, and it's not just going back to the text and saying, oh, the text says this. It's our relationship as part of the story. That we tell the story and we respond to it and we react to it. And we react to it with the 3rd century sage who said this about it, and the 12th century rabbi in France, and we're all part of the conversation, and they're all helping us to frame and understand our place right now. And why the text is set, the story is not.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's more respect for that, isn't there? More space to disagree about. We don't have as much. I think we don't have as much latitude in Christianity.
Well, I'll let you in this public setting make the critique of Christianity.
In a lot of Christian
I'll
circles.
speak for us.
I'll say a lot of Christian circles would have a very narrow understanding, and if you venture from that, it's not in a church like Montview, but in a lot of settings.
I would affirm that about us. I think there is that, I would call it almost a playfulness, that we're supposed to play with the text. There's a wonderful teaching by those early sages, hafoch, 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 ba, turn it, because everything's in it.
Love it.
And it's all there.
Turning the soil.
Yeah, it's all there, and it evolves and changes with us. And it's the process of Torah that is, it's more of,
I like the,
we call Torah,
the movement of it. Yeah.
We call Torah an Eitz Chaim, a tree of life. And it's a tree. It is growing and evolving, and it's shedding pieces like trees do, and it's fruiting. It's offering fruits, and it's.
But there's a taproot there in that tree that you keep coming back to. Yeah.
But there's new branches, and there's
this is an interesting time in the world, and a very tender time for us, and tender. Because time is getting short here in this video, is there anything that you wish people knew about Judaism that, I don't know, might correct misconceptions or preconceptions that you would like to leave us with?
I mean, so many things come up.
Yeah.
I guess right now, I can't get away from in my head or my heart what's happening in the Middle East is very challenging, and there's many troubling things. That could be another video series.
Yes.
But outside the Middle East, the way the world is reacting is really discomforting for many in the Jewish community. and anti-Semitism is on the rise, and people in my community around the world feel it. And I guess I would want and encourage people to, whatever those tropes, that sense of that come with those ways of thinking about us, that I could just blow them up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're not a cabal that's all connected. I don't have a pipeline to military intelligence in Israel.
Right, right.
We are as, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, we are as discombobulated, disagreeable as any group. We are just wanted to have, most of us, send our kids to school and have them be in who they want to be healthy and well, and enjoy each other and friends in this life that we're given.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, really glad to have you. And at this time, and our hearts go out to your community as well.
Yeah.
All right. Couple questions?
Couple of questions for you. Similar to last time, we just thought, think about, one, what did you grow up learning about Judaism? You know, what kind of understandings, and in what ways might those have been challenged? What did you learn from this? What was new for you? What surprised you out of this? Just a way to step into a conversation tonight together about this amazing faith tradition that we come from ourselves.
We claim ourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
All right. Blessings to you. Blessings to all of you. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you at church.
Bye-bye.